on the thesis and sold it as a textbook. W.B. Saunders published it, which is the biggest medical publishing house in the world, W.B. Saunders, and they published that thesis as a textbook. The first printing was 30,000. The second printing was 30,000. I think we're probably going to do it again. We have a lot to add to it as kind of an update and refresh it. But I think we'll probably do 100,000 copies this next printing, and so we'll probably do that in the next year or so. We're working on 2 more books I got to finish before we start that project. But I think it's time to update that one. But very, very proud of that. It started out with 5,000 pages. It was 5,000 pages, and everything was very crisp and tight. And W.B. Saunders says we'll never sell them 5,000 pages because the book was that thick and there was so much information in there. And people, it would cost $50,000 a book. They said, "Okay, not going to do it." And so they edited it down without losing any of the meaning. All the pictures were there. The pictures stayed in, of the microscopic slides and that kind of stuff, the various diseases where it was pertinent. Now, if you can find them used and beat up, you might get one for $400, but usually they're averaging around $900 to $1,000. If you get them in pretty good shape, they'll sell for $4,500 to $9,000, $10,000. Brand new, if they're still in the box, not open, they sell for $25,000. Because to redo that project would cost over $1 billion. They looked at that a couple of years ago. They were going to redo the project. So I said, I'll volunteer. I'll supervise it for nothing. I'd like to redo the project. Okay, 30 years later. So I won't charge anything. I'll just do it just to be doing it and be involved. And they called me in 6 months and said, "Okay, sorry, Wallach, we can't do the project." Why? What's the matter? Well, we did an estimate of the cost of the project. To get it done in 10 years, it would cost $1 billion today. It was only $25 million back then. So they'd rather just spend $25,000 on your thesis than to redo it for $1 billion. What I'm going to talk about tonight is the biggest cause of death in Americans, cardiovascular disease. That sounds pretty simple, but I want to precede those remarks with 2 statistics. Statistic number 1 goes back to 2004. The Center for Disease Control, some of you have been with me for a while, you've heard that before. Center for Disease Control, that government agency that tracks diseases and plagues and epidemics and all that kind of stuff. What they said in 2004 was that our children would be the first generation of Americans that do not live as long as their parents, according to the Center for Disease Control. That indicates a catastrophic failure of the healthcare and medical system. You only point in one direction, the healthcare and the medical system. They are the cause of this, where the government is saying our children will be the first generation of Americans that do not live as long as their parents. So our goal is to save as many as we can. And we can either build an ark or we can try and circumvent the problem. I think we'll help more people by circumventing the problem. Just a couple of years ago, Johns Hopkins, very famous medical school from Baltimore, Maryland. You've all heard of Johns Hopkins, very famous. They came out and said that they've been looking for 20 years for the top 20 causes of death in America and that kind of stuff. And just a couple of years ago, they came out and said the number 3 cause of death in America is medical doctors. Simple mistakes in their workplace. Simple mistakes in their workplace. Each year, medical doctors in their workplace kill 251,000 patients. Every 4 years, they kill 1 million patients from simple mistakes in their workplace. How many businesses could stay in business if they killed 251,000 of their customers every year? 0. Yeah. Now, the reason they survive is they have insurance. So the insurance pays off the relatives to keep their mouths shut, and their society lets them keep their license, and they just keep on going and keep killing more people. Now, those are 2 horrible statistics. I mean, this is in the front page of the New York Times, and yet people continue to go to doctors. I just love my doctor. He told me to take 2 aspirin a day and my headache could go away. Cardiovascular disease is the number 1 killer of Americans. Cardiovascular disease starts in the intestines because you need nutrients, and we'll get into some of those nutrients in a minute for the cardiovascular system. But if you're eating gluten, you cannot absorb them because you're damaging your intestine. And if your ability to absorb drops down below 3%, no matter how much supplements you're taking, it's all going out in the toilet. So part of the deal is, for 100 years, the medical system has been telling everybody, eat more whole grains, they're good for you. Bam! You're dead. Because of gluten. Wheat, barley, rye, and oats. Wheat, barley, rye, and oats, okay? Now, what was the breakfast of champions? Wheaties. Why do you think all the athletes die so young? Wheaties. What about Quaker oats? Getting a picture? Okay, now, got to get rid of all that. Pancakes, waffles. You have to live like an Asian, live on rice and sweet potatoes and vegetables and fish and poultry and red meat's fine, but you can't have wheat, barley, rye, and oats. You can't eat the European grains. If you like beer, that's fine. But you got to drink Japanese, Korean, and Chinese beer because they're made from rice. All the European and American beers are made from wheat. This is drop-dead serious problems. We're killing our kids by giving them all these grains. Vegetarians kill more people now than communists. Then oils, which everybody said is good for you, they taste good in salad dressings and mayo and all that kind of stuff. Don't put mayonnaise on the sandwich, okay? Because oils oxidize and turn into trans fats, heterocyclamines, and acrylamides. Oils, heated oils, whether it's fried or even room temperature in salads as a salad dressing, cause plaque in your arteries. Cholesterol does not cause plaque in your arteries. Cholesterol does not cause heart disease. That's an absolute lie. Your biggest enemy is oil. Turns into trans fats, heterocyclamines, and acrylamides. I found that out in, it was 1969. I was on that big project with NIH, did my 20,000 autopsies, and 2 of them were wild sheep from the Atlas Mountains of North Africa, north of Morocco. And they were only in America for 2 months. They died 3 days apart. When I did the autopsy on them, they died from 98% blockage of their coronary arteries with plaque. I had to sit down a minute. Now, where were these sheep getting cholesterol? They're not eating eggs. They're not eating red meat. They're not eating butter. So I gathered up the food they were eating, which was mixed grains. They were giving them grass clippings from the zoo. They were giving them hay. So I got it all together. We looked for pollution. We couldn't find any pollution or contaminants, chemical contaminants in the food. But we did find the acrylamides and the oxidized oils. But they didn't, in the recipe, they didn't add any oils. So where were the heterocyclamines and acrylamides coming from? Where were the trans fats? You're exactly right. The mixed grain was stored for 2 years in a metal 55-gallon drum in a metal barn. And during the summer times, you get over 120 in there. And it oxidized the wheat germ oil. And the wheat they were feeding those sheep oxidized, turned into trans fats, heterocyclamines, and acrylamides, and caused the plaque in the arteries. I spent 6 months researching those things and figured it out, got it published. I tried publishing it in a cardiology journal here, medical journal here in the United States. They wouldn't take it. They said, Wallach, you're out of your mind. That's a human disease. Why would sheep? I said, that was my question, but I figured it out. No, we won't publish it. I couldn't get it published in veterinary journals. They said, well, we called the medical guys because this is a human disease, and they said, you're crazy, and we can't publish it. So I got it published in a Danish pathology journal. Okay, so it did get published. Then you have to appreciate, when you can't absorb these nutrients, many of them are minerals. Now, I have to tell you that hemorrhoids, varicose veins, and aneurysms are caused by deficiency of the same nutrient. That same nutrient deficiency causes white hair. I see some people with white hair in here, and silver hair, and salt pepper hair, gray hair. These are people who are in great risk of having aneurysms, okay, and varicose veins and hemorrhoids, because that one nutrient deficiency causes all those problems. Then I did 1,700 autopsies on kids under the age of 10 who had died of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy heart disease. That's that heart attack that young athletes die from. 1,700 autopsies on that project. These kids all died from this heart disease. In America, 25,000 under the age of 20 die each year in America from that sudden heart disease, caused by deficiency of a single mineral. When I did that autopsy thing, I was actually looking for something else. I already knew what that was caused by. So I was looking for cystic fibrosis, muscular dystrophy, and Sudden-Mendez syndrome. In the 1,700 autopsies of the kids that died of that heart disease, that heart attack, 35% had cystic fibrosis, 100% had muscular dystrophy, and 200 of them under the age of 1 year of age had what would be diagnosed here in America as crib death or sudden death syndrome. We used that information to sue the FDA, and we got a ruling in our behalf to put that nutrient in. And I've been trying for years to get all 60 minerals in. They were just too complicated. This time I just tried that one nutrient. And the federal judge gave us the ruling in our favor, April 16, 2013, that all manufacturers of baby formulas had to have that nutrient in it. Now, for up until that time, we actually came up with Kids Toddy, which had that nutrient in it, which is a liquid multiple for babies, and we'd have them put that in the baby formulas because the baby formulas only had three minerals. You need 60. All these babies are dying of all this stuff. And the doctors are saying, oh, they're dying of all these genetic diseases. No, which is simple mineral deficiencies. So to make a long story short, 3 months after that ruling by the federal judge, the FDA gave them a high and a low. You can't get below this because you won't get any result. You can't get above this because we don't have any experience above this. And all these manufacturers of baby formulas, including things like Infamil, Similac, why is it they named that baby formula Similac? Because it lacks everything. But once they put that nutrient in there, 3 months later, the Charlotte Observer, which is the main newspaper in Charlotte, North Carolina, they came out and said big headlines on the front page. I mean, like Third World War type headlines, bold, black, big headlines, said, we don't know why, but sudden death syndrome has vanished in North Carolina. Well, that's because we put that mineral in the baby formulas. 3 months later, the state of Missouri came out and said the same thing. We don't know why, but sudden death syndrome has vanished in Missouri. 3 months later, every newspaper in America came out and said, we don't know why, but the rate of sudden death syndrome, SIDS, crib death, has reduced by 85 to 95% in every state because that one nutrient was put in the formula. These are the sort of things we do. So let's get to congestive heart failure. You all heard of that. That's caused by deficiency of a single vitamin. And Ryan was interviewing me today, and he was asking me some of these things, and I'd almost forgotten that the porpoises in captivity were all dying of congestive heart failure in the zoos, and this was back during the 60s. And I just came back from Africa. They were telling me, well, yeah, we had 3 dolphins for about 2 years, and they all died of congestive heart failure. Another zoo would call me. They call me from Europe, in London. Why are all our dolphins and whales dying of congestive heart failure? Well, because it's caused by a deficiency of a single nutrient. Well, it turns out the fish they were feeding them had an enzyme that destroyed that nutrient. Smelt. They were feeding them smelt. It has that enzyme in the muscle. At every zoo that began to feed, they said, oh, feed them smelt, they're cheap. And so as soon as they all started feeding them smelt, they all died of congestive heart failure.
That must have smelled bad.
Yep, it did. Very good. Oh, you're okay. So at any rate, we changed their diet, got them on the 90 essential nutrients, and it instantly stopped the deaths in the dolphins and the whales in the zoos. Huh? And so the same thing is true with us. One of the things that actually puts pressure on that vitamin, let's say you're taking a modest amount of that vitamin, if you eat a lot of sugar, that sugar inactivates your body's ability to use that vitamin. Okay, it makes that enzyme that destroys that vitamin stronger. So sugar is one of your worst enemies, okay, when it comes to congestive heart failure. And when it comes to birth defects, and babies are born with holes in their heart and all kinds of heart problems and this, that, and the other, that's caused by mama missing these nutrients during pregnancy when the heart is forming. It's not a genetic thing. AFib. AFib is not a heart thing. It's the cardiologist killed that congressman from Elijah Cummings, where he was from. Maryland. Yeah, okay, Elijah Cummings. He was 68 years old. He'd been in the Congress for 30 years or 40 years or something. Long time congressman. He had AFib, and they opened him up, and they took a soldering iron, heated it up, and tried killing parts of his heart muscles so that it wouldn't run fast and beat irregularly, because they thought it was a heart problem. They killed him on the surgery table. A congressman. They killed him with the wrong treatment because he had a back problem. The nerves that control the rate and rhythm of the heart are the first 4 thoracic spinal nerves. When you have degenerative disc disease, your vertebrae T1, 2, 3, and 4 get closer together and smash the roots of those nerves, causing AFib. Now also, if you have osteoporosis of the skull, and it's squeezing the 10th cranial nerve, the vagus nerve. Vagus nerve does many things. When you squeeze the vagus nerve, you get COPD, that chronic dry cough, unproductive cough. That's osteoporosis of the skull, squeezing the 10th cranial nerve, the vagus nerve. You also get AFib, so you can have AFib from osteoporosis of the skull, squeezing the 10th cranial nerve, and also from degenerative disc disease, squeezing those 4 nerves between T1, 2, 3, and 4. So you could have 2 causes of AFib, but none of them are from the heart. Also, you can have what's called gastroparesis, which is extremely painful belly pain, and they can't figure it out, but it turns out it's that vagus nerve goes all the way down into your belly and controls your intestines and your stomach, and they'll put these endoscopic tubes down your throat and look around there looking for an ulcer, that kind of stuff, or cancer in your stomach, take samples and things. They can't figure it out. Say, well, the only way we can guarantee we can take away the pain will just take your stomach out. Well, that's the wrong approach, right? And so I'm telling you all this. Oh, there's one other thing I had to back up. I missed one. Okay, how many of you have heard of red blood cells? How many of you heard of white blood cells? Have you ever heard of platelets? Okay, now all of those are part of the cardiovascular system, right? They're just the mobile cells that carry oxygen and food and stuff like that, right? They do things, but they require 90 essential nutrients. Your bone marrow makes red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. So your bone marrow is part of your cardiovascular system. Because if you're not giving all the nutrients necessary to your bone marrow, you can't make red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. People say, oh, you have an autoimmune disease, your platelets aren't there anymore. Really? Do you have any skin problems? Yeah, I've got eczema and dermatitis. Well, Margie, what does that mean?
Gluten.
Gluten alert, gluten alert, gluten alert. So even if you're supplementing with minerals, you can't absorb them, so your bone marrow is still without the minerals. Okay, well, what about white blood cells? What if you get a pneumonia or something like that? Do your white blood cells go up? They say, no, they can't figure out why. They say, I must have a bad genetics for my immune system because I can get any disease you can think of, and my white blood cells never pay attention. They never increase or never go to the local place, have nothing. Okay, well, when you bleed, how long? If I nick myself shaving, I'm bleeding for 3 days. That's because there's no platelets. Because the bone marrow is not getting the nutrients it needs because you're on gluten and you can't absorb them if you're supplementing. And you know people with these problems. They put the pieces of tissue paper in their face and it's just bleeding through that all the time. Your platelets aren't working. So all that has to do with the cardiovascular system. The doctors want you to think it's just your heart and arteries. How many nutrients does it take for bone marrow to make red blood cells? 90. Oh, my doctor said I just needed iron for my red blood cells. No. You have all the proper amounts of iron in your blood, but if you're missing any one of the other 89, you're going to be anemic. Well, my doctor says I have a genetic disease. Well, what about sickle cell anemia? It's called thalassemia. It's called thalassemia in white folks. Same disease. Because it's not a genetic problem in black people. I've seen sickle cell anemia in hummingbirds, okay, and snakes, all kinds of vertebrates of every kind, chickens and all kinds of stuff. Why? Because it's the deficiency of a single nutrient during incubation in the egg or during gestation in the uterus. When the bone marrow cells are forming that make hemoglobin. If mama's missing that stuff, there's an injury, and so it just keeps producing dysfunctional red blood cells. Doesn't matter what race you are, what species you are. So the cardiovascular system is a lot more complicated than just doing a heart transplant. And you guys are in a position to prevent all these problems and reverse all these problems. Now you think about that. Remember, the CDC says our kids will be the first generation of Americans that do not live as long as their parents. That's because doctors are giving out nothing but misinformation. Eat more whole grains. That's the worst possible thing you can do. Eat like an Asian. Rice and sweet potatoes, vegetables, fish, except for smelt. Okay? And poultry's fine. Red meat's fine, but you can't fry it. You can't burn it. But I took iron. No, you need everything to make it all work because you're dealing with every tissue in the body as part of the cardiovascular system. So let's open it up for questions, a few questions. Yes, sir.
Three snack foods, I'll call them. Peanuts, raisins, sunflower kernels, and wild blueberries.
That's 4.
That's 4, okay. Any of them good, bad? What's the...
Well, you said sunflower seeds, right?
Sunflower kernels.
Kernels, okay. Well, you got to watch it because they have oil in them, sunflower oil. If they're stored for any length of time, they've oxidized and turned into bad stuff. Same way with peanuts.
Oils are dangerous.
And oils are dangerous. They cause cancer and they cause plaque in your arteries. Also, peanuts have a fungus on them called aflatoxin. Ryan and I were talking about that today when he was filming me. And there was a very famous story. It goes back to the 60s when all the bears in the world in captivity were dying of liver cancer. Every bear in the world in captivity was dying of liver cancer. Polar bears, black bears, Kodiak bears, brown bears, sun bears, pandas, they were all dying of liver cancer. When I came back from Africa to do my 20,000 autopsy study for Marlon Perkins and the NIH, he gave me his personal list. Okay, you're going to do the project for NIH, but since I got you the grant, these are the 12 things I want. Well, the first thing on there was all the bears in captivity are dying of liver cancer. Okay, well, it's not a genetic. I said, well, what do they think it is? He said, well, they just say it's got to be a genetic thing in bears. Well, why suddenly, after all these years, are every bear of every species dying of liver cancer? It can't be genetic, so don't tell me it's genetic. Okay, so what are they feeding them? Well, they're just, giving them vegetables and bread and peanuts and stuff, stuff like that. And, they sell peanuts and people throw peanuts to them and they stand up and beg and people throw peanuts to them and kind of stuff. Well, there's a fungus that grows on peanuts called aspergillus, which produces a toxin called aflatoxin, which causes liver cancer. There's a mold that grows on bread. There's people call it penicillin mold, but it's really not penicillin mold. It's actually this aspergillus. It's kind of green like penicillin, but it's not. It's aspergillus. So they're also getting from the old moldy bread, which they would buy for 25 cents a loaf and feed it to the bears, because one loaf of bread was 1,500 calories, and they didn't have to give them all that meat and this, that, and the other, so they're just giving them 2-3 loaves per bear every day of moldy bread. So anyway, so I said, okay, let's write a letter to all these zoos, because, we're talking 1960. We didn't have emails and stuff like this. So let's write a letter to all the zoos and suggesting that this is the problem, and just have them change to dog food that's gluten-free. Okay, it had to be gluten-free dog food, dry dog food, and vegetables, and let's see what happens. Well, in 90 days, all of the deaths from liver cancer stopped, and there's never been another bear since the 1960s get liver cancer ever since. So we saved the dolphins by changing their diet. We saved the bears by saving their diet. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out from the medical school there in New York City. I want them to give me what percentages in the homeless people dying of liver cancer versus people who are in the middle class dying of liver cancer. I'll bet you the homeless people is many times higher because they're eating the old moldy bread with the aflatoxin and the aspergillus mold. These are things you can control, and they're all in the books. They're all in the book, Rare Earthsman Cures, Epigenetics. It's all in the book, Dead Doctors Don't Lie. It's in the book, Immortality. That stuff is in there. There's life-saving stuff in there. I forget about these things, and I forget, we were going over how many autopsies they've done, and I'm missing about 4,000. I said, where did I do those? And we're driving over here, and it dawned on me, I spent 2 years in Africa, and the impala, antelope, were competing with the white rhino for the same short grass, and we were killing 400 of them to 500 of them a month so they wouldn't be eating the stuff that the white rhino needed. And we would give the meat to all the local villages, so they were happy. It was against the law for them to hunt them, but we could crop them to save the white rhino. So I did autopsies on every one of them. We didn't do laboratory work, because I was out in the middle of the bush, but we did gross autopsies on all of them. Which ones had birth defects? Well, they had birth defects out in the wild because it's not a genetic thing, it's nutritional deficiencies. Parasites, that sort of things in the intestines. You get a roundworm that long, it's easy to see. You don't need to look under a microscope to find that one, and so forth. And so that was another 4,000 there. 1,700 in China. 20,000 in North America, okay, in the universities. Another 5,000 between University of Missouri, Iowa State University, Washington University, and also the Yerkes Primate Center in Atlanta. Work for NASA. I get almost breathless when you think about all the things we've done to help save humanity. And of course, the medical doctors say just the opposite. They don't listen to that Wallach he's a quack, blah, 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 blah. Okay? And so people choose poorly, and they'll listen to their doctor, and the doctor will kill them. Okay, anybody else have a question? Yes?
What do you think about the GMO stuff, and is that much worse yet than...
Okay, have you ever heard of crapola science?
Crapola?
Yeah, crapola.
Is that a university?
Yes. Now, what does GMO stand for?
Genetically modified organisms.
Okay, see, now they're trying to blame all these illnesses on genetically modified food. That's crapola. Okay, it has nothing to do with that. You have to appreciate that mineral nutrients, which make up 2/3 of the 90 essential nutrients we need, do not occur in a uniform blanket around the crust of the earth. They occur in veins like chocolate and chocolate level ice cream. They occur like gold in gold mines. Does gold cover the earth equally? No. There's a mine over here, 10,000 miles, there's a mine over there. Same way with coal. Same way with oil fields. Same with silver. Same way with iron. They do not occur in a uniform blanket around the crust of the earth. I was able to prove after 20,000 autopsies in one project that there are no genetically transmitted diseases. There are no genetically transmitted birth defects. And so when doctors couldn't figure out, and the environmentalists couldn't figure out why we're having all these problems, well, they're going to blame it on GMOs. It's a genetically modified thing. Well, that's why we're having all these problems. No, none of it is caused by GMOs. I get breathless every time I think about this, how badly they missed it. That our children will be the first generation of Americans that don't live as long as their parents. Doctors kill in their workplace by simple mistakes every year, 251,000 customers. When do you say enough is enough?
Right now.
Now. We have to take control. And that's what you're seeing with longevity. People need and want the information. They have to be independent. Back when I was a kid, we didn't have electricity until I was 9 years old. In those days, all the grannies used wood stoves. They didn't have electric stoves. And when Grandma had cravings, she had pica and cravings. Are you pregnant? You have cravings? No, I just have cravings. She'd take a spoon, go out in the backyard and eat clay and dirt. Kids will eat dirt when they have cravings. They would use wood ashes. They would eat wood ashes, and they'd mix them in with their porridge, or they'd put them in their drinks, or they'd put them in their bread dough to stop the cravings. Wood ashes, which are minerals. Now, babies, what were the beds called for babies 50 to 150 years ago?
Cribs.
Cribs. How many of you heard of cribbing? Okay, babies would chew on the rail of the cribs when they were missing those minerals and have cravings, and so they started putting fiberglass and plastic shields on the rails to prevent cribbing. Now, when you go into a horse barn and you see where the horses are chewing on the top rail of the stall they're in, they call it what? Cribbing. Well, pike is another name. Cribbing is the common term for it. It's caused by mineral deficiencies. Now, why is it? I'll find out here pretty soon. In Santa Monica in California, they've had 28 horses either die on the track or had to be destroyed because they broke legs racing on the track. Have you heard about that kind of thing going on? Yeah? That didn't happen before. Why is it happening now? Well, I'll bet you they changed their source of mineral supplements, or maybe to save a little money they stopped giving them mineral supplements. They just give them hay and grain. Well, there's gluten and grain and hay, which only needs 3 minerals. And so the first thing I'm going to do is go in the barns and see if they're cribbing. And then I'm going to get hair from their mane and tail and do hair analysis on them. And I'm going to, I'm sure they did autopsies on them, so I'll, go to the veterinary school and get the results of the autopsies.
With people struggling with drug addictions, what would be the best thing for them?
Great question.
Okay, very good. Minerals, very high levels of minerals, because cravings are tied to nutritional deficiencies, okay? And of course, why did they take them originally? Did they have anxiety? Did they have depression? Okay. Anxiety, okay. Well, anxiety is caused by a mineral deficiency, caused by a deficiency of a single mineral. Talk therapy and all the tranquilizers and painkillers in the world aren't going to fix it because it's a mineral deficiency. And they need to get rid of all the gluten and all the bad stuff, right? And you have to appreciate all these people that have done mass murders and mass shootings, all these people who do terrible things to their family and their schoolmates and workmates in public places, all these people who right now have autism and all the various symptoms of autism. We have 1 million kids under the age of 6 that are already on psychotropic drugs for autism in America. 1 million right now under the age of 6. And if you have somebody in your family with ADD, ADHD, autism, anxiety, you get them on the minerals, get them on the 90 essential nutrients. Talk therapy and tranquilizers aren't going to cut it. And I'll end that statement with, you really need to, you really need to listen to some of my presentations because I go into this in great detail. But the one that I want to share with you is a medical doctor from South Bend, Indiana. In September of last year, he was late. He'd been practicing for 40 years in Indiana, had 4 clinics. People loved him. He didn't show up for a family meeting, so they sent his son to go to his house in Illinois, and sure enough, he was dead from a heart attack, 70 years old. Ulrich George Klopfer is his name, Klopfer. Well, after they buried him, a week later, the insurance had paid off, and they had the house sold, and everybody met at his house, all the family met there to divide up the insurance money and sell the house and get that money, divide up the cars and the furniture and all that kind of stuff. And one son's exploring the basement and the 6-car garage in the attic, and he finds 2,400 medically embalmed human bodies in blue plastic bags. 2,400. Now, I guarantee you he was deficient in nutrients. So this is a very simple problem. Okay. Well, I want to thank you all. God bless you. We have a job to do to save America. Longevity is in a position to save America, and I'm very excited about this. Save as many as you can in your church, in your family, in your neighbors, your workplace, and that's what it's going to take. And don't forget, we have tools. One of the heaviest questions people ask me is, well, I'd like to do this, but I'm not a nurse, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a pharmacist, and people are going to be asking me about diabetes and arthritis and Alzheimer's disease and all this kind of stuff. What do I do? Anxiety, what do I do? Well, we have tools. We have CDs, DVDs, and books that tell you what to do. We have these kind of meetings, and these people have been with me. Char and Margie have been with me for, 29 years?
For a while.
Yeah, almost 30 years. And they know more than doctors. Okay? We have people been with me. Lance, how long have you been with me?
17 years.
17 years.
There you go.
Okay, there you go. Well, let me start out by saying that all birth defects are preventable. There's a small percentage of birth defects that are caused by infections with viruses and bacteria and fungus and poisons and pharmaceuticals in the early stages of pregnancy. One of the most famous ones is thalidomide, which was an Australian drug for morning sickness in women in early pregnancies. And 10,000 babies in America were born without arms and legs because thalidomide interrupted the development of the limbs in the early embryo. All other birth defects are caused by nutritional deficiencies in the developmental stage of the embryo. There are no genetically transmitted birth defects. My thesis, $25 million study with the National Institutes of Health, is in the Smithsonian Institute as a national treasure because I found there were no genetically transmitted birth defects and there are no genetically transmitted diseases. When it comes specifically to Down syndrome obviously is caused by a birth defect at the moment of the first duplication. In other words, when the sperm fertilizes the egg, you're a one-celled human being, and then that one-celled human being divides into 2 cells. At that moment, if you're deficient in one particular mineral, the odds of being a Down syndrome is very high. And of course, up until the 2nd month of pregnancy, I have success in reversing Down syndrome embryos by giving the mother the 90 essential nutrients to provide that nutrient and other nutrients, of course. And we've done this in animals, and we've done it in people. My most famous one was Lauren Knievel, Evel Knievel's niece-in-law. She came to me, she was 2.5 months pregnant and diagnosed with a Down syndrome embryo, and she says, well, I'm not going to get a abortion, and I know I'm kind of late along the line here, but can you help me? I said, well, yeah, I think, we'll give it a shot, but, I can't give any guarantees because I've never done one past 2 months. So in other words, we gave her the 90 essential nutrients. Her baby's born perfectly normal. Of course, it was a famous story because Lauren Knievel and Evel Knievel were very famous people. But the same thing is true with all birth defects, whether it's a 2- and 3-headed baby, or it's a baby with a heart defect, or hydrancephalocele, which is spina bifida of the brain, that kind of thing. We have kids born with too many fingers, no arms, We have kids born with muscular dystrophy, cystic fibrosis, all these kind of things. These are all totally preventable. Cystic fibrosis and muscular dystrophy are reversible even after the baby's born because they're nutritional deficiencies. They're not genetic defects. Obviously, when a baby's born without an arm, you can't give them vitamins, minerals, and rego an arm. But this information should be taught in 6th grade about the time that teenagers are going through puberty. This should be taught very heavily. If you take the 90 essential nutrients, you can prevent almost all birth defects except the ones caused by viruses and chemicals and prescription drugs and so forth. And it'll give everybody's babies and grandbabies the best shot at being born normal. And whether you have a cleft palate or a cleft lip, and of course I have a very famous story about that. One zoo had a pair of Arctic foxes, and they had a litter of babies, 10 of them, and they were all born with cleft palate. And of course, the general curator and all the keepers wanted to destroy the mother and father and all the babies because they were afraid it was a genetic problem. They said, whoa, whoa, whoa. Before you do that, let's do something useful here. First of all, what did you feed the mother and father before they got pregnant? Well, they're meat eaters, so we gave them horse meat. Okay. Did you give them any vitamins, minerals? No, they're meat eaters. We gave them horse meat. Well, that's why the babies were born with cleft palates and cleft lip, because mom was missing things when the baby went from a flat disc into a tube, okay, and they had a cleft palate, cleft lip. And that's the cause. So I'm going to prove it to you. So what I want you to do is take 2 of the males and 2 of the females, and I want you to hand raise them, bottle feed them, and I want you to keep them separate, and then when they're old enough to go through puberty, breed one of the males to one female, to a sister. I mean, that's inbreeding as much as you can get, and breed the other female to the brother. And that's inbreeding again. But I want you to give them dog food, and I want you to give them dog puppy formula and hand feed them the formula with all the nutrients in it prior to them getting old enough to be pregnant. The others that you keep, I want you to let the father of these babies breed 2 of the females or more, 2 to 4 of the female babies, but you're going to have to, same way, hand raise those with the puppy formula with all the nutrients in it. And then when they get old enough, you're going to give them dog food, okay? It has to be gluten-free dog food so they can maximize absorption of the nutrients. And then I want 2 male babies to get old enough to be able to breed the mother and get her pregnant, inbreeding again. And let's see how many of the babies are born with cleft palate. Now, if it's genetic, I mean, it's going to be 100% babies with cleft palate because you're inbreeding and inbreeding and inbreeding, and so it should be 100% cleft palate. So we did that, and 9 months later, we totally had 100 babies from all those inbreeding couples and pairs, and they're all born perfectly normal. Published. The big detail is in the book Rare Earths Forbidden Cures. I would say that's the place to see it. There's actually the picture in there of all those kits with the cleft palates and cleft lips, and then you get all the statistics and everything. But this is true of all other birth defects. Cycloptic babies, 1 eye in the middle of the forehead, 2 heads babies. We're talking about heart defects. We're talking about babies born with every kind of physical defect you can think of, or biochemical defect you can think of. They're all nutritional deficiencies during the developmental stage of the embryo. Totally 100% preventable.
Thank you so much for joining us. And Dr. Wallach is on with us. So Dr. Wallach, if you want to start your video, I know that Carmen had a question. And if anybody has questions specifically about this program, let's go ahead and take some questions. Let's see if we can get him to unmute and turn his camera on. There he is. There you go, Doc.
Yeah, we can take a few questions.
Can we take a couple questions?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's fantastic, because I know this was kind of unplanned. It's been a crazy morning, but folks, Dr. Wallach just really wanted to get this information out there. Ryan did a fantastic job putting this program together, gave us permission to be able to share it with you. So thank you, AJ. There we go. Anybody have any questions? I have a question, Dr. Wallach.
Okay.
When you were traveling, how often did you do events like this with the distributors in places like hotels and restaurants?
Well, sometimes it was 15, 20, 30 days a month.
That's a lot of traveling.
Yep.
But that just goes to prove your dedication to each and every one of us and humanity.
Yeah, well, thank you for that thought. And my whole thing was when you know this stuff and you see that the outside world is oblivious of it, that they would go on for another million years going the wrong direction and talking about genetics and this, that, and the other. So I was trying to build an army of people who are educated, who are motivated to save as many as we could and build an army to make all these presentations. And of course, that's what we've been doing. And we can't thank you enough for you and your team to jump in there and take a great position. Thank you so very much.
Well, Dr. Wallach, it gave me a new look on life, and it gave me my life back to where I couldn't keep it to myself because I had gotten to a place where my health was so poor. It's being pushed off to pain management, and nobody could figure out what was wrong with me. I mean, I had a lot of stuff going on, yes, but they couldn't give me a solution. And that solution is what I found when I heard your message. And now I want to make sure that others hear this message around the world. And we have a lot of people on with us. I just want to do a shout out to each one of you in taking the time and investing this time into yourself to educate yourself and learn more about the importance of nutrition. And when the nutrition isn't there, deficiencies occur, and so do disease and defects. So if you have ever thought about getting involved in sharing the message that Dr. Wallach shares with us, or trying it, please get back with the person that shared this program with you. If there's no one to thank, call our team at 855-949-3377. This is for people who have never tried the products before and who have never spoken to anyone before. We want to make sure that we maintain the integrity because this is a resource for an amazing group of coaches. And we do have a business opportunity that gives you a thank you check as you share and help others find a better health journey as well. Now we do have AJ with a question. AJ, go ahead and unmute yourself. And what question do you have for us?
Dr. Wallach, I just want to say thank you. Just watching that video, and the one section that really touched my heart was when you said, didn't have enough money to sue everybody, but we had to focus on the kids and make sure that we could save the kids. You know, the babies are the most important for the next generation. And you're the man. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the kind words, and thank you for all the efforts you put out, because it takes an army to win a war. This is a war against ignorance. And so we really, really appreciate you. And you're definitely a 5-star general in the Army. Thank you, sir.
Yep. We definitely are blessed to have AJ and people like him on our team helping. And this is the longevity team, not just my team, but there's so many amazing people out there helping and getting this message out as well. One of them has her hand up. Carmen, go ahead and unmute yourself. And please, I hope you're being safe.
I am. I fractured my wrist on January 7th, and I was taking what you gave me, plus, the glucogel, and Dr. Glidden suggested some phytum officinale, which is comfrey, and that made the swelling go down super quick. I've had no pain since I've been taking that, and the fracture healed quicker than they told me 5 to 6 weeks, and it was in the cast for 24 days. That's like 3.5 weeks, not 5 weeks. And then they told me I would have to wear the brace for a year for it to totally heal. And I went in today and they said it was healed. So that was a lie. That's not a year. That's a month. And but ever since I fell down and fractured it, my blood pressure went up, and they said it's because your body's broken and it doesn't like it. And my blood pressure was today 157 over 80, and it's usually 100 over 60 or 110 over 70, but not that high. And I know that you used to recommend the Ultimate Daily Classic, but I don't know. I'm 135 pounds, 5'3", I'm 70. How many do I take?
Okay, I would take 3 twice a day, the Ultimate Daily Classic.
Okay,
take 3, and I do that. I don't have any problems. I take it just for prevention. And of course, I have to pay for it just like everybody else. I don't get it for free. And so it's definitely worth it because it helps you get blood flowing into the brain, helps you get blood flowing into the heart, into the kidneys, which filters your blood and gets all the bad stuff out outside the body through the urine production and so forth. So the Ultimate Daily Classic tablets are really a great tool for dealing with blood pressure, blood flow, blocked arteries. And so thank you for bringing that one up.
and then I have a rash that I'm allergic to nylon and polyester, and apparently the brace is made out of that. So that's why she told me to take it off. So now I've got a skin rash from my top of my wrist all the way to my elbow. I've been using the CM cream, but I don't know what oils put on it.
Okay, well, again, you have to stay away from all the bad foods. No fried foods, no processed meats, no oils, no gluten, no wheat bran, no buckwheat, no sugar, no carbonated drinks. Even the diet one's got to go. Take your 90 essential nutrients, and take our hair, skin, and nails. Add that to the program, hair, skin, and nails, and it all goes away.
Okay, thank you. Super. Have a great day. I love you. God bless you. Bye.
God bless. Love you too, dear. Bye-bye.
All right,
Bye-bye.
Carmen, wonderful, wonderful news on how the body can do some amazing stuff whenever it's given the right ingredients. So fantastic. I see your smile. You're very happy about that as well. And I can imagine, having the report of after a month, everything looks great, when they told you it was going to take a year. That's fabulous. I love it. There is a question wanting to know, is raw milk okay, Dr. Wallach?
Well, from a standpoint of nutrition, raw milk's fine. Okay. But you have to know where it came from, how it was derived, and so forth. And there's always a chance it's been contaminated with some bugs or something like that. But the nutrition aspect of raw milk is sometimes more complete than milk that's been homogenized, because when you heat it, okay, and to kill all the bacteria and stuff like that, you're destroying some of the nutrition also.
Well, maybe you can help me with this, because this is something I've been wondering about. I was raised on whole raw milk for the most part, and I could drink it with no problems. But I went to store-bought milk, and it gave me intestinal issues, so I couldn't drink it. Why would that be a difference, where a raw milk I did great with, but then I went to a store-bought pasteurized milk, I couldn't do it?
Well, there's many possibilities. It could be what the cow is eating was coming through the system into the milk. Okay, that's a possibility. Because milk is not milk. It depends on where the cow got its food, how it was obtained from the cow, how it was preserved and bottled, and so forth. So there's a lot of things going on there. And so it's just like water. Water, we all need water. But did it come from a well? Was it filtered? Was it heated so it killed all the bugs in the water? I mean, these sorts of things are all important to know. And again, if you have raw milk from someplace and you're getting a reaction to it, you just stop using that raw milk from that place. And if you can find out, send the milk to a lab and have them culture it and test it for, maybe the cow's eating some poison ivy and the poison ivy is coming through into the milk, or, who knows?
For us, there's no poison ivy in the desert. And I loved our raw milk. Daisy and Little Bit did a great job. I'm proud that my dad taught me how to milk a cow. Okay. Because if I had to, I could do it again, and I have. And we were very particular. I mean, all of our buckets and the strainers, everything was washed with lots of soap and sterilized. So we took that effort in making sure that the raw milk that we were bringing into the house for us to consume definitely didn't have any contamination because of overlooking something or just being haphazard about it. So yeah, it was great. But Dr. Wallach, thank you so much for recommending this video. We are going to continue this video. We kind of stopped right there at the end of the birth defects because there's more information to share, and we will be doing that on another day. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us here on Daily with Doc. You are awesome, and you are worth taking the time to learn more about what you can do for yourself and being intentional about your health. Now, for Dr. Wallach's books, you can give Wellness Publications a call. You can go to the website, and Dr. Wallach, go ahead and hold that up a little higher, and that's 800. Actually, I have one right here too. You got the phone number memorized, Doc?
Right in the bottom there. 1-800-755-4656, right?
4656. Perfect. It wasn't clear for me. And get Dr. Wallach's books. Get back with a person that shared this program with you to get on a supplementation program that gives the body the 90 essential nutrients plus that Dr. Wallach found to be vital to allow the body to do what it is meant to do. Now, the content of this program is not meant to take the place of your primary care physicians. The products are not meant to treat, diagnose, or cure any disease. The FDA requires us to let you know this. But folks, the body, when it's given the right ingredients, which Dr. Wallach has put together some amazing formulas, he and his formulation team, the body can do what it was designed to do. And that's not just barely survive, that is thrive. And I invite you to join me in what it feels like to actually thrive. So until next time, everybody have a fabulous weekend. My name is Becca Dukes. Visit us at dailywithdoc.com. Again, if you are not working with anybody or you've never tried any of the longevity products, feel free to give our call team a call at 855-949-3377. And don't forget to sign up for our email list. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Wallach.
Thank you, AJ.
Thanks, Doc.